Number 10. The Ranger Sentries. The Ranger Sentries are one of the newer additions to this list, but in such a short time, they have made a massive impression. I mean, they even made their way into the Power Rangers fighting game Battle for the Grid. But for those who don't know, the Ranger Sentries are from the Boom Studios comic series. They work for the villainous Lord Drakkon and are soldiers who are connected to the Morphin Grid with powers Drakkon stole from Rangers he killed. They look awesome and they have their own powerful weapons and were a key part of the Shattered Grid event. And they help Drakkon take over multiple worlds and kill tons of Rangers and civilians. Number 9, A-Squad. I feel like A-Squad would be probably a bit higher on this list if they were in it more. They were mentioned a lot throughout the season, but they were only in it for like a couple of episodes. They were this famous team of Rangers that were, the best for in the SPD. Even better than the main Rangers of the series, who were the B-Squad. Well, turns out that they were actually just straight up evil and not as perfect as everyone thought. They also had some interesting outfits. Their helmets were, of course, from Power Rangers in Space, but the rest of them was a hybrid of like a Ranger suit and also some high-tech military armor. It was actually really cool. I wish we could have learned more about them and had them in more episodes, but hey, they were still cool in the time they were given. And the story of the SPD's fabled A-Squad turning out to be the villains was actually really, really interesting. Number 8, Rita Repulsa movie version. Let me just say I love the 2017 Power Rangers movie. It honored the original series, but brought its own unique modern spin. Unfortunately, it didn't do as well as they were hoping, so the sequel got scrapped, and now we will never see those Rangers fight Tommy Oliver in the sequel like the after credits scene was teasing. But we did get to see them fight a Green Ranger, and that was of course Rita Repulsa. Yes, in this version, Rita was actually part of the original Ranger team that was led by Zordon. It was a cool twist. It added a really unique dynamic to the Ranger-Rita rivalry. She was the Green Ranger of that team and killed the other Rangers except Zordon, who was the Red. He managed to get their power coins and hide them from her until they could find new Rangers worthy of harnessing their power. Rita kept hers, and once she returns, she uses that coin, and we get to see her harness the Green Ranger power plus her own, and it was pretty awesome. It was cool to see how her suit adapted and got kind of corrupted. She was a great villain, and the ending set up her and her base on the moon. Elizabeth Banks did such a good job, and I would have loved to see where they would have taken her in the sequels. Number 7, Jason and Kimberly. I feel like some people might have forgotten about this one, but to this day, it's still one of the scariest Evil Ranger moments. I mean, their deep, altered voices were just scary all on their own. But if you don't remember, let me jog your memory. Evil Jason and Kimberly didn't come from an episode or a comic book. It came from a movie, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie to be exact. Divatox kidnaps and sacrifices them as a part of her plan to bring back Malagor. And the two of them come back as evil minions for him. They have enhanced strength, deep voices, as I mentioned, and red eyes. It makes for a truly terrifying combo. They fight the Turbo Rangers and actually do a ton of damage. Eventually they were restored back to normal and all is well, but it was still so cool and terrifying to see them take on the Rangers like that. Plus, fans finally got to see Jason in a Power Rangers movie since he wasn't included in the Mighty Morphin movie, which was really sad. Number 6, the Ranger Slayer. Like the Ranger Sentries, the Ranger Slayer comes from the comic series and is a new addition to the Power Rangers canon. The Ranger Slayer is actually Kimberly Hart, who was the original Pink Ranger from an alternate reality. But don't be fooled. She is not a good guy. Well, I mean at first. She was brainwashed into working for Drakkon and ended up killing other Power Rangers. Her story in that dimension was actually pretty similar to the original, at first. That is until Drakkon kills some of her teammates and her boyfriend, which makes her try to go and take on him herself. She has an altered suit and possesses the Bow of Darkness, and became known as the Ranger Slayer. The Ranger Slayer is scary, deadly, and one of the coolest things to come out of the Power Rangers comics. Number 5, the Thunder Rangers. Man, let me start off by saying Power Rangers Ninja Storm is seriously one of the best seasons that they have ever done. They have great team, great suits, an awesome villain, and some of the best character development in any Power Rangers season. Plus, they also had two of the best evil Rangers, Hunter and Blake, who are also known as the Crimson and Navy Thunder Rangers. They were tricked by Lothor, who was the main big bad of the season, into thinking the Wind Rangers were the bad guys and that they were responsible for their parents' death. They constantly got the upper hand on Shane, Tori, and Dustin, but in the end, realized the truth and eventually became their allies. Their journey was one of the highlights of the season as you understand why they were doing what they were doing. Throw in the fact that they had some of the coolest suits and moments of any Evil Rangers, and it just makes for an amazing Evil Ranger. Number 4, the White Dino Ranger. Trent Fernandez Mercer, aka the White Dino Ranger. Trent was the adoptive son of the big bad of the season, Mesogog, also known as Tommy's former colleague and friend, Anton Mercer. Trent's real parents were archaeologists who were killed while on a mission with Anton, so he decided to take him in. Trent eventually comes in contact with the White Dino Gem, which was created by Tommy and Anton, and turns into the White Ranger, which gives him one of the coolest Ranger suits ever. Like seriously, it's in the top 5. The Dino Gem gives him super speed and the ability to camouflage. The gem was tampered with and ended up corrupting him, which is why he ended up going evil, since before he found it, Trent was friends with Connor, Ethan, and Kira, and of course Tommy Oliver, who is now known as Dr. Tommy Oliver, since he earned a PhD in paleontology, which is something I never thought would happen. But I mean, in Power Rangers universe, I guess, anything is possible. But back to Trent, he became one of the greatest evil Rangers by not only besting the main 3 Dino Rangers, but also Tommy on multiple occasions, who, as everyone knows, is one of the best. Like a lot of other evil Rangers, he ends up turning to the good side eventually, but that does not take away from all the mayhem he caused before that point. Number 3, Lord Draken. Okay, so this was tough because Lord Draken could have easily been number 1. And I mean, this just shows you how many good evil Rangers there are. I mean, because of all the things he's done and the fact that he's brand new, which makes it even more impressive. He's Tommy Oliver from an alternate universe who, after being defeated by Jason, decided to stay evil and went back to Rita. His goal from then on was to not only destroy the Rangers of his world, but every world. He created Ranger sentries from the powers of the Rangers he killed, and technically he ultimately won by creating his own dimension, although they ended up changing it. But Draken killed so many Rangers and destroyed so many worlds that overall he did accomplish more than any evil Ranger ever, and that's a massive achievement. Plus, Jason David Frank actually got to play him in live action for the Shattered Grey comic event trailer, which was very cool. Here's hoping we get to see Lord Draken officially show up in a Power Rangers film or TV show one day, because that would be so awesome. Number 2, the Green Ranger. Okay, so I might get a little hate for this, maybe, since a lot of people would consider Tommy to be number 1. Because yes, he is awesome, and he almost was number 1. This was really hard. Tommy was the original evil Ranger. He started the trend. The Green Ranger was so popular. I mean, everyone loved him. After he was gone, they got so many requests to bring him back that they did bring him back. He consistently defeated the Rangers in battle. I mean, he even jumped into the Megazord and destroyed them in there, something that no other villain did. And it didn't end there. He even teleported into the command center and he destroyed it. He seriously injured Alpha and Zordon. The latter took a long time for them to fix. Once they found out that it was their friend Tommy, it caused even more of a rift because he knew everything about them. There would be no evil Power Rangers without Tommy, and he will always be remembered as one of the best. But now we head on to number 1. The Psycho Rangers. Now, like I said, I know a lot of people would put Tommy as number 1, and rightfully so. But while Tommy started the trend of the Evil Rangers, the Psycho Rangers took that concept and ran with it. They were absolutely terrifying, and not only tormented one Ranger team, but 2. They fought both the Space Rangers and the Lost Galaxy Rangers, where the Pink Psycho Ranger was technically responsible for the death of the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger, Kendrix, which was the first time a Ranger had actually died in the show's history, which was a massive deal. They were so popular that they even ended up introducing a new Psycho Ranger in the comics, the Green Psycho Ranger, who was, you guessed it, also insanely evil, killing Rangers from the original Mighty Morphin team who went on a mission to the moon in the year 1969. Now, of course, that is during comic continuity and not TV show continuity, but regardless, they changed everything. I mean, they even returned in the new graphic novel Power Rangers The Psychopath, which was also amazing. Number 10, Crash and the Creeps. Okay, so this one is pretty different from anything else you will hear on this list, but hey, we need to talk about it. Now, Crash and the Creeps are both kind of monsters, but also Rangers in a way. They were created by Divatox during Power Rangers Turbo. Originally, they were members of Cassie's, the Pink Turbo Rangers band. They are unique in a way because they don't really share the same designs as the Turbo Rangers, or each other for that matter. Whenever they would perform their main song, it would not only mess with the concentration of the Rangers, but a lot of other citizens of Angel Grove as well. They were only in one episode, but because they were so different and unique in regards to other evil Rangers, mainly just because of how they look. Number 9, the Dark Rangers. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Lord Zed chose these new bullies at Angel Grove High to become the Dark Rangers, since they basically felt like the city should be theirs anyway. Lord Zed teleports these bullies to the dimension known as Otherworld and uses the green crystal to transform these bullies into the Dark Rangers. These bullies are sort of like the same counterparts to the original Rangers, even sharing the same first letter of each of their names. But once the Green Rangers is able to eliminate the crystal, it destroys the Dark Rangers and turns them back into people again. However, in the new comic series, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 55, which just came out recently, they're doing their own take on these Dark Rangers. They were created by Lord Zed to turn Rita Repulsa, Squawk, Goldar, Finster, and Babu into Dark Rangers. We get Rita as the Red Ranger, Babu as the Black Ranger, Goldar as the Yellow Ranger, Squat as the Blue Ranger, and Finster, who is the Pink Ranger. Each of these new Dark Rangers also have Lord Zed Zed on their suit's chest. Ugh, there's a tongue twister. Lord Zed Zed. Number 8, the Shadow Rangers. In Power Rangers Turbo, we got introduced to the Shadow Rangers. These Shadow Rangers are basically clones of the Turbo Rangers. They almost look identical to the actual Turbo Rangers, but they have gray helmets instead. One of Divatox's monsters, a Shadow Chromite, stole the Rangers' powers when they were morphing. This is when these Shadow Rangers appeared and attacked them. Tommy finds out that these Shadow Rangers were created by refracted light, and to eliminate these enemies, one must defeat them in darkness. He's able to bring these Shadow Rangers into the shadows, no pun intended, and defeat them. They end up defeating the Shadow Chromonite by using the Turbo Megazord to basically block the Shadow Chromonite's life source, eliminating the Shadow Chromonite itself. Number 7, Green Ranger Shredder. So everyone knows the evil villain Shredder from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe. But in a special event series that led to a non-continuity crossover between the Power Rangers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder is able to gain access to the Dragon Power Coin and get the Green Ranger's Morpher to be able to turn into the Green Ranger Shredder. Yeah, I never thought that would happen. And he looks so friggin' cool. Like, check him out, guys. Now, this isn't even the first time we have seen the Power Rangers crossover with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It also happened during Power Rangers in Space. The suit itself is just so amazing, and it's a great combination of what Shredder is used to wearing, but upgraded and meshed with the Green Ranger suit. Definitely wouldn't want to take him on. Number 6, Cyborg Rangers. So in the season of Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, General McKnight, who is the general of the headquarters, tells the Lightspeed Rangers that they are being replaced by the Cyborg Rangers. Basically, the Cyborg Rangers are like artificial intelligence and they can control from the base. These Cyborg Rangers are almost identical to the Lightspeed Rangers with only a few minor differences. They feel that they will be able to get the job done much better than the actual Lightspeed Rangers. When the Cyborg Rangers are on a mission, they are fighting villains and are actually winning and doing quite well. But once the villain uses his lightning ability and blasts the Cyborg Rangers with it, basically alters their systems. See, this is why we can't trust artificial intelligence. Am I right, guys? Anyways, it alters their systems and makes them turn, you guessed it, evil. Trying to do harm instead of trying to protect. The original Lightspeed Rangers are called back in to defeat these Cyborg Rangers and save the day. Number 5, Robo Ranger Tommy. This version of Tommy was a robot that showed up in the 25th anniversary special Dimensions in Danger. He was created by the villain known as Lord Draven, who, you know, sounds very similar to Lord Draken. Maybe they just didn't want to actually use him or couldn't. But anywho, he has the powers of the Black Dino Ranger. He didn't last a very long time though, as he was destroyed by Tommy during the episode. But we still got to see a cool fight, you know, Tommy fighting himself. The Robo Ranger was helping Draven steal powers for his cyborg army. During the battle with Tommy, we were introduced to Tommy's Master Morpher, which was created in the comics, and during the fight, Tommy goes through all of his previous Ranger forms, which was very, very cool to see. And yeah, he eventually destroys Draven and goes about his day. Number 4, the Spirit Rangers. The Spirit Rangers were the evil Rangers that showed up during Power Rangers Jungle Fury. They were created by the Phantom Beasts as a way to destroy the Power Rangers. They consist of the Green Elephant Spirit Ranger, the Black Bat Spirit Ranger, and the Blue Shark Spirit Ranger. As the season went on, the Masters controlling them were freed, and the Spirit Rangers could now fight alongside the main Rangers, whenever the Rangers summoned them, of course. They were a cool addition to the Jungle Fury story and had some really cool suits. Honestly, I feel like Jungle Fury is kind of like an underrated season. I mean, it had some really cool ideas, and for some reason I feel like a lot of people forget about it. If you have a chance, you should go back and just watch it. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. Or maybe you won't, and that's okay too. Number 3, Evil Wind Rangers. The Evil Wind Rangers come from the Dino Thunder, Ninja Storm crossover episodes. Lothor returns from the abyss of evil and casts a spell on the Wind Rangers, making them, go evil. But just the main three, Shane, Tori, and Dustin. Cam then realizes what's happening and he calls in the Dino Rangers for help, along with Hunter and Blake as well. These episodes are considered to be one of the best Power Ranger crossover episodes. It was very cool to see the Wind Rangers meet the Dino Rangers and have them duke it out. And for a while, Shane, Tori, and Dustin actually had no problem beating Connor, Ethan, and Kira. They fight unmorphed a lot in this as well, since both teams actually have powers outside of their Ranger forms. Eventually, Cam figures out a way to get them back to normal, but by tricking them into thinking that they're actually getting upgrades, when in reality, it breaks the hold that Lothor has on them. The Wind Rangers then team up with the Dino Rangers and defeat Lothor and Mesogog, and it's really awesome. I mean, that morphing sequence was pretty crazy. Number 2, the Magna Defender. Okay, so technically Magna Defender is not straight up evil, and there are a couple versions. One of them was, Mike, who was Leo's brother from Lost Galaxy, who was supposed to be the original Red Lost Galaxy Ranger, but I digress. We are not going to talk about when Mike inherited the power. Instead, we're going to focus on the first incarnation. The original Magna Defender was originally the protector of the Lights of Orion, but ended up losing his way when Scorpius destroyed his planet and killed his son. He even ended up possessing Mike's body at one point. Now, like I said, he's not a straight up evil ranger, but he did fight the Lost Galaxy Rangers, specifically Leo, while he was on a mission of revenge, when he kind of lost his way. And he's just pretty awesome. And any opportunity I get to include him, I'll take it, because he is just so cool. Number 1, the Titanium Ranger. The Titanium Ranger, also known as Ryan Mitchell, was the evil / 6th Ranger during Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. He is a son of Captain Mitchell. When he was a kid, he, his father, and his sister, Dana, were all involved in a car accident. They were hanging off a cliff, and Captain Mitchell only had a secure grasp on his daughter Dana. Just as Ryan was about to fall, Diabolico appeared and offered to save Ryan, but he would raise Ryan himself, and Captain Mitchell wouldn't see him again until his 20th birthday. Although conflicted about it at first, Captain Mitchell ended up agreeing so that his son could live. Because of this, Ryan grew up with Diabolico and was fed lies that his father abandoned him, and so he ended up hating him. He then broke into the Aqua Base and stole the Titanium Morpher. His mission was to destroy the Rangers, and he was just really powerful. He did become good though in the end and joined the team. Also, fun fact, the Titanium Ranger is actually an American creation. He has no Super Sentai counterpart, which was the first for the franchise at the time. It's also why he wasn't featured as heavily as some fans would have liked. Still, it was really, really cool though, and I think they did a great job with the suit. Number 10. He's Tommy Oliver. At this point, I feel like everyone knows this one, but it just had to be on there because it's crucial for his character and his character's motivations. Now, he's not the Tommy Oliver we all know. He's an older one from an alternate reality, and one that wants nothing more than to destroy the Power Rangers. I feel like regardless, Lord Drakkon would have been fairly popular even if it wasn't Tommy, but making him Tommy was genius. It established a connection to the Power Rangers unlike anything we have ever seen. I mean, this was a member of their team. Not the one they knew personally, but still, seeing an alternate version of your friend who you knew and you loved would be difficult for anyone, because he is clearly in pain. God, it's such an amazing story. Number 9, created the Ranger Slayer. Yep, Lord Drakkon created the Ranger Slayer. He's basically the gift that keeps on giving, because he's not only awesome, but so is the Ranger Slayer. If you don't know, the Ranger Slayer is Kimberly Hart from that alternate universe. She became known as the Ranger Slayer after she was brainwashed by Drakkon. Drakkon killed some of her former teammates, which was the reason she chose to take him on herself. She ended up losing to him in a battle. He then brainwashed her and she became known as the Ranger Slayer. She controls the Bow of Darkness and became this badass ranger who killed a lot of other Power Rangers. Number 8, caused the biggest battle in Power Rangers history. During his run in the comics, Drakkon started something that will go down in history as the biggest Power Ranger event / battle ever. Shattered Grid. It brought together every single Power Rangers team, like ever. and they all banded together to take on Draken and his armies. It was legendary and will probably be the biggest, slash coolest one we will ever actually see. I mean, the legendary battle from Power Rangers Super Mega Force tried to do something kind of similar by bringing together all the former Ranger teams, but it just didn't work as well, especially since we only saw a handful of Rangers unmorphed. The rest didn't talk and stayed in their suits the whole time, so it kind of took away from their return. Number 7, his suit. One of the coolest things about Draken is his suit. It's a mix of Tommy's Green Ranger suit and White Ranger suit. And it looks amazing. Plus, it evolved over the course of the series, once he started collecting more Ranger powers. But in the comics, Zordon was in the middle of giving Jason the White Ranger abilities when Draken intervened and took them for himself. And it ended up merging with his own, already Green Ranger power and created this whole new suit. Also, it instantly made him one of the strongest Rangers right on the spot, since the Green and White are both very powerful on their own. Put them together and you have this unstoppable duo. Number 6, killed a lot of Power Rangers. This is where he has a lot of other Power Rangers villains beat. Well, I mean, the Psycho Rangers have done this too, and the Ranger Slayer, just not on the scale of Draken. But, as the title suggests, he killed a lot of Power Rangers and stole their powers for not only himself, but his sentries. He had a connection to the Morphin Grid like no other Ranger has ever had, because he had the Morphers from all different types of Ranger teams. And the interesting thing was that it turns out that he only needed one Morpher from each team to grant him that specific connection to the Morphin Grid. The rest he just gave to his sentries, which actually is a perfect introduction into Number 5, he created the Ranger Sentries. As I just mentioned, he took powers from different Rangers, and what he didn't keep he gave to his Sentries, which were like his Power Ranger soldiers. Now they would take on a similar look to whatever power they took from, so you had some from all different Power Ranger seasons, which was very cool to see. They weren't as powerful as some of the Rangers, but they were close, and were skilled enough to take them on in a fight. And there were hundreds of these guys, which makes it even scarier. Imagine seeing an army of them, and they were just had all these weapons coming at you, and they would make for a formidable foe, that is for sure. Number 4, chose to stay evil. This is one of the most interesting things about Draken. He chose to stay evil. Unlike the Tommy of the main Earth, who, after being freed from Rita's spell, he chose to join the Rangers and become a force for good. This Tommy, however, decided to stay evil and wanted nothing more than to destroy the Power Rangers. It was an interesting twist and really changed the way we looked at that version of Tommy. Clearly, he was a damaged guy. I mean, he was put under a spell and forced to be evil by Rita. And people always wondered, what would have happened if he didn't join the Rangers? Well, now we got to see it, and it was done so well. Number 3, consistently got more powerful. When he first got introduced, Lord Draken was already very powerful. But as the series went on, he just kept getting more and more powerful. Like, during Shattered Grid, he was basically a god. He had taken so many Ranger powers that he just basically couldn't be stopped. And it was cool to see. All the different versions of his suits have already become very popular for cosplayers. I mean, just Google it and you can see. Plus, it was cool to see how it evolved and changed over time as he took another Ranger power for himself. Number 2, already appeared in live action. As soon as he was introduced, people started saying, when are we going to see Draken in live action? And will Jason David Frank, who plays Tommy, be able to play him? Well, fans got their wish. While promoting the Shattered Grid event, Boom Studios made a teaser trailer for it, and Jason David Frank got the chance to play Draken for real. And fans freaked out. I mean, they loved it. He donned the costume and everything. I wish they brought him into the TV show and made him the villain for the 25th anniversary, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Regardless, we still got to see Jason David Frank play Lord Draken, and it was awesome. Who knows? I don't know, maybe he will get the chance to play him again one day. Maybe there's gonna be an episode where Draken shows up in the TV. Who knows? It's a possibility. Number 1, he's not the first Lord Draken. This one is like super interesting. During the comics, when Rita was trying to bring Tommy back to her side, she brings up someone that she used to know, named Draken. He was this warrior that conquered his world and was, insanely powerful. Tommy ends up really liking that name because, of course, he ends up taking on and becoming the new Lord Draken. I wonder if soon we will see the original return. I think that'd be really cool. And it opens up a lot of different story possibilities, which we might end up seeing down the line. Because, more Draken is always a good thing. Number 10. Bridge Carson. Bridge Carson, aka the green SPD Power Ranger, but also the blue SPD Power Ranger and the red SPD Power Ranger. You see, the SPD team has ranks and you can get promoted, and that is exactly what happened to Bridge. Now, SPD is based in the future, in the year 2025, which is kind of crazy because it premiered in 2005. And when it was in 2005, 2025 just seems so far away. But now we're in the year 2020. Can't believe we're that close. But in that future, a lot of the population have certain abilities. So for example, Bridge, along with his ranger powers, has psychometry, meaning he can see the auras of anyone around him, and started to show that he had other sensory abilities as well. I always liked Bridge because he was kind of this strange and goofy guy, but when it came to his work, he took it very seriously. And it paid off for him since he got promoted twice. Once at the end of the season, and then again when he returned during the Once a Ranger episode during Power Rangers Operation Overdrive, when he showed up as the red SPD Ranger. Bridge even made an appearance in the Soul of the Dragon graphic novel, which was based around an older Tommy Oliver. Number 9. Ziggy Grover. Ziggy Grover, aka Ranger Green, is part of Power Rangers RPM. Power Rangers RPM goes in a different direction for their season, as they are trying to stop world domination from a machine army led by an AI. This villain is actually enslaving all of humanity. When we see Ziggy, he started out by actually taking money from the cartel and using it for a children's orphanage. He has done quite a bit for this orphanage, and after having to serve out a sentence by being an assistant to the Rangers, he ends up actually becoming Ranger Green by having to use the technology on himself to save it from ending up in the enemy's hands. This was an interesting story of how he had to overcome training to actually fit into the Power Rangers, since, he didn't really have much experience in combat. Number 8. Carlos Valerte. Carlos, the Green Turbo Ranger, and also the Black Space Ranger. Carlos became the Green Turbo Ranger after Adam and the rest of the original team, had to pass on their powers. When the series begins, Carlos is a little bit of a hothead, and he doesn't take criticism well, and kind of just does things without thinking of how they will affect him or other people. Fortunately, he does grow over the course of the series and becomes a solid Ranger. At the end of Turbo, when they don't have their powers, he's still willing to travel into space to save Zordon with TJ, Ashley, and Cassie, even though they could have and most likely would have died without powers. But, of course, they end up meeting Andros and become the Space Rangers. And that led into one of the best seasons of Power Rangers ever, so it's all good. Number 7. Joel Rawlings. In Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, Joel is the green Lightspeed Ranger. Before he was a Power Ranger, he was an aerial stuntman. Captain Mitchell, who is the leader of the Lightspeed Aqua Base, recruited him to join the Lightspeed Rangers. Joel was quite hesitant at first to be a part of the Lightspeed Rangers. He was not one to just fall in line and take orders. But as he began to be part of the team and actually see the threats out in the world and how to face them, he came to realize that working together as a team was how to win. Also, I always remember the storylines when he used to go out and ask out Miss Fairweather, and then usually it never worked out, and oh man, Joel was a pretty funny guy. Number 6. Trip. Power Rangers Time Force gave us the introduction of its Green Ranger Trip, who actually isn't even human. That was something that was very different and cool about this season. The Time Force Rangers end up having to go back to the year 2001 after Prisoner escapes to that year. This was such an interesting season that we got introduced to, since they were able to play with time travel in such a cool and interesting way. Trip is shown to have a good heart and as always tries to see the good in people, regardless of what they have done. Since the people from his planet do not lie and try not to hide anything, it makes for some interesting interactions, for sure, with the other Rangers since he is quite trustworthy. Number 5. Rita Repulsa. So, in the Power Rangers movie that came out in 2017, we got introduced to Rita Repulsa as the Green Ranger. It took us back to the Cenozoic era with Zordon as the Red Ranger and Rita as the Green Ranger, who ends up betraying them to use the Zeo Crystal to take over the world. This added aspects of both Zordon and Rita that ended up actually improving the characters and adding this interesting rivalry. This was such a cool and interesting twist on the lore of Power Rangers that showed us Power Ranger going to lengths to killing fellow Power Rangers. When she returns in the present day, she's trying to recreate her minion Goldar to find the Zeo Crystal. She was successful in creating Goldar and attacks Angel World with Goldar and her putties. The Power Rangers use their Zords to battle Goldar, but Rita decides to help Goldar by merging herself with Goldar during the battle. In the battle, the Rangers ended up defeating her and Goldar, sending her directly into outer space towards the moon, which was a cool nod to the original series because that's where her base was. I'm still just so disappointed that we're never going to see a sequel to the 2017 film. I really loved it and I wish we could have continued that story. Number 4, Damon Henderson. Damon Henderson, aka the Green Lost Galaxy Ranger. Power Rangers Lost Galaxy is one of my favorite seasons. I just think everything about it works so well. Damon was a mechanic that worked on the Astro Megaship, which of course was introduced during Power Rangers in Space, which right off the bat was a really cool connection to the previous season. The story of a mechanic being thrown into this cosmic adventure is really interesting, and because of his skills as a mechanic, but also a boxer, Damon becomes one of the most crucial members of the team. I mean, if it wasn't for him, the Rangers may not have survived a lot of situations during the season. I mean, during the first couple episodes when Kai is trying to commandeer the Astro Megaship, he realizes how difficult it is to fly, and Damon comes in and takes over. Damon knew that ship like the back of his hand. He was an awesome Green Ranger, and it was awesome to see him return during the Legendary battle. I just wish he had a little bit more screen time though. Number 3, Cam Watanabe. So in Power Rangers Ninja Storm, we get introduced to Cam, the Sensei's son. Now, Cam doesn't become a Power Ranger right away, and is actually more of just helping, run the Ninja Academy. He actually really wanted to be more of a part of the academy and train, but this is not what, his father wanted for him. At first, he was there to only help the Power Rangers with their, Morphers and Zords. But after the Power Rangers lost their powers, Cam was able to journey back in time with the Scroll of Time. When he arrived in the past, he found his mother, who never wanted Cam to train because of how dangerous it really was. They became friends in the past, but Cam never told her who he actually was. When he was explaining the situation about how his mother never wanted to train in the arts and how his father upheld that promise, she told him that if his mother saw him now, she would let him train. And when he was framed in the past by his father's brother, Lothar, the villain of the season, they have a duel with Cam being victorious and getting him banished from the academy for his use of the dark arts. Cam ended up with the Samurai Amulet, but intended to give it back to his mother. But his time was up in the past, and when he was about to get transported back to the present, his mother told him to keep it. He then returned to the present and became the Green Samurai Ranger. And he had one of the coolest suits of the season as well. It was just amazing. Number 2, Adam Park. Adam started off as the Black Mighty Morphin Ranger, which is still probably his most famous because that's usually what he returns as. But he was also 2 different Green Rangers, the Green Zeo Ranger and the Green Turbo Ranger, before Carlos, who I talked about earlier, took over for him. When Adam joined the Power Rangers family, I don't think anyone expected him to be as awesome as he was, because he was taking over for Zach, someone that we had all been watching and grown to like over 2 years. But Adam became a fan favorite and one of the longest serving Power Rangers ever. He was just really likable, and even before he became a Power Ranger, he would always help out the team. He got solid storylines and proved himself countless times as one of the team's most skilled and reliable Rangers. I always thought that he would have become a Red Ranger one day because he was great at leading the team when he had to. He has returned a couple of times as well, during Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. Number 1, Tommy Oliver. I don't think anyone will be surprised by this. I mean, Tommy is the original Green Ranger, the one that started the trend. He started out as an evil ranger created by Rita, and his popularity skyrocketed. Eventually, he joined the team, but due to not having a ton of footage to use of him, he sometimes had to be mysteriously absent, like for a random karate practice, or his powers being depleted, or Tommy leaving his communicator in his gym bag, stuff like that. Regardless, when he was there, he was awesome, and had so many cool moments. I mean, to this day, him calling the Dragonzord with the Dragon Dagger is just still amazing. In the time he was given, he made a big impression. But it also helps that he had the best Green Ranger suit of all time. And I feel like that's probably not going to change, but who knows, it could. I still would have loved to see how they would have altered the Green Ranger suit for Tommy if the 2017 movie got a sequel. I'm still impressed about that. Number 10, Shelby Watkins. Shelby Watkins made her debut in Power Rangers Dino Charge as the Dino Charge Pink Ranger. Before Shelby became a Power Ranger, she was a waitress, and all Shelby wanted was to go and dig up some fossils. But she was not allowed, so she does what anyone would do. Go anyway, and she snuck into a dig site. Shelby sees someone stealing a crate at the dig site and goes after them, and finds that they are Energems in the crate. The thief turns out to be a villain and freezes her and Tyler, who is an assistant. But having made contact with the Energems, they save them from freezing to death, and that is how Shelby ended up becoming the Pink Dino Charge Ranger. Number 9, Dana Mitchell. So in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, we got the introduction of Dana Mitchell, the Pink Lightspeed Rescue Ranger. Lightspeed Rescue aired in 2000. 20 years ago. Oh my god, I feel old. She is smart and open-minded and knows the value of leadership since her father, Captain Mitchell, is the leader of the Lightspeed Aqua Base. She was also crucial to bringing the Lightspeed Power Rangers together as a team. She also has a brother, who was introduced later in the season, who becomes the Titanium Ranger. I guess being a Power Ranger runs in the family. Dana also made an appearance in Power Rangers Time Force and Power Rangers Super Mega Force. Number 8, Karone. Karone is the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger. Well, the second one. She took over for Kendrix, who we will talk more about later. Karone has had a very interesting journey during Power Rangers. For starters, she made her debut in Power Rangers in Space, but not as a Ranger, but as a villain, Astronema. Also, she has a connection to the Space Rangers. She is Andros' sister, who is, as we know, the Red Space Ranger. That whole season was him kind of looking for his sister, and it was a really big deal when he found out that his sister was the big bad that he was fighting all season. Eventually, she became good and ended up sticking around for a while. Years later, she became the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger. Karone also returned during the legendary battle during Power Rangers Super Mega Force. Number 7, Catherine Hillard. Catherine, aka the Pink Mighty Morphin Ranger, and the Pink Zeo Ranger, and the Pink Turbo Ranger. As of right now, Cat is the only Pink Ranger to be on 3 separate Ranger teams, which is pretty cool. Cat didn't join the Rangers until Season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. She took over for Kimberly and ended up staying for, well, a long time. Although she started off as a threat to the Rangers, as she was brainwashed by Rita, but she eventually overcame it and ended up joining the team later on, which was a big deal. Of course, she ends up passing on her turbo powers to Cassie, who we will, spoiler alert, also be talking about later on this list. Cat recently came back to the world of Power Rangers during the 25th anniversary episode Dimensions in Danger. Also, in that episode, it was hinted that her and Tommy are still a couple, and that Catherine is the mother of Tommy's son, JJ. However, in the comic, Soul of the Dragon, it is directly stated, and in Dimensions of Danger, the episode, it took a lot of inspiration from that comic. Like the Master Morpher, JJ, and Tommy and Catherine are seen holding hands as they leave the episode. Number 6, Kimberly Hart. Kimberly Hart is the original Pink Power Ranger. She is the one that a lot of people instantly think of when they hear the words Pink Ranger. When the series began, Kimberly was this popular girl at school who was a bit spoiled and not really someone you would expect to be a Power Ranger. But Kimberly grows over the course of the series and becomes a solid Ranger. Kimberly has taken a lot of monsters on by herself, saving her friends in the process. In Season 1 of Mighty Morphin, she was the last Ranger standing against the Terror Toad, who at that point had swallowed Billy, Trini, Zach, and Jason. Kimberly fights him and ends up freeing her friends by shooting Terror Toad with her power bow right in his throat. It was a sad moment when Kimberly decided to leave the team, but we did end up seeing her later on in Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. She wasn't a Ranger, but she fought them when she got put under a spell and turned evil along with Jason. But that was the last we saw of her. Well, technically, I mean in official canon, she was said to be part of the Legendary Battle and the most recent Grid Connection episode, but only morphed, and she never even talked. So in reality, we actually haven't seen her in person since 1997. Number 5, the Pink Psycho Ranger. The Psycho Rangers are so freaking scary. To this day, I think they are still the best evil Rangers. Although, it's so close between them and Draken. Oh man, I just keep going back and forth. But the Psycho Pink Ranger might be the most famous out of all of them, because she's the one that technically killed the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger, which was the first time a Ranger had died in Power Rangers canon. The Pink Psycho Ranger was based off of Cassie and created by Astronema and the Dark Spectre. That's why they are so hard to beat. Even in the little time they are given, they made such a big impression, and that is why they even returned during Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Number 4, Kendrix Morgan. Kendrix, the first Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger. We talked about Karone earlier on this list, who ended up taking over for her, but Kendrix was the first Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger. She worked on the Terra Venture as a science officer and ended up being one of the people to lift
out the Quasar Saber and become a Lost Galaxy Ranger. Kendricks was smart, thoughtful, and very brave during her time as a Power Ranger. Also, she technically made history as the first Ranger to be killed off on the show. She sacrificed herself to save a fellow Ranger. The reason for this was because the actress who played her was actually diagnosed with leukemia and had to leave the show for treatment. She was still credited for every single episode so that the producers could still help her pay for the treatment. And the treatment was successful, and she is now leukemia free, which is great. Hopefully, she returns one day, and because we all could use a little more Kendricks, because she's awesome. Number 3, Cassie Chan. Cassie Chan is the Pink Turbo Ranger and the Pink Space Ranger. Cassie took over for Catherine, who we talked about earlier, as the Pink Turbo Ranger. Cassie was chosen by Cat because of her bravery. Even when she didn't have powers, she was willing to put her life on the line to save others. She is also very strategic. Cassie will just never run into a situation without a plan. And near the end of Turbo, when her team lost their powers, they were still willing to go into the unknown reaches of space to save Zordon, who had been kidnapped. That's when she met Andros and became the Pink Space Ranger. Cassie returned during Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and during the legendary battle during Power Rangers Super Megaforce. Number 2, the Ranger Slayer. So we talked about the original Kimberly Hart, but now let's talk about one for an alternate reality. The Ranger Slayer. This is an older version of Kimberly from the comics, and one that was evil for a little bit and worked with Lord Drakkon, but not just because she wanted to. Her story in the comics starts out exactly like Kimberly from the show. Everything from the first episode on. Of course, the comic does change things, kind of just little things throughout the whole thing. But in that reality, Laura Drakkon kills Jason and Billy. The love of her life is also dead, so basically she decides to take on Drakkon by herself because she has nothing left to lose. She actually did very well, killing a lot of his sentries. But then he ends up overpowering her and brainwashes her into working for him and going off, and she starts killing other Rangers. She has an altered suit and possesses the Bow of Darkness and became known as the Ranger Slayer. She has become such a fan favorite and had a major role in Shattered Grid and the Beyond the Grid arc. The Ranger Slayer is also a playable character in the Battle for the Grid video game. She is probably one of the best ones there. Her powers are perfect for a fighting game. Number 1, Jen Scotts. Jen, aka the Pink Time Force Ranger. Jen isn't just the best Pink Ranger of all time, but just one of the best Rangers of all time. She is just this badass who leads the Time Force team and doesn't take no for an answer. Even after her fiance died, which she saw firsthand, she still managed to lead the team into the past and take down Ransik, which shows how just determined she was. She even took on Ransik in the finale when she was hurt and unmorphed, which is crazy because Ransik is insanely powerful, and if Jen made one mistake, she would have been instantly killed. Jen also played a massive role in the Shattered Grid comic event, and is now the mentor to the Hyperforce Rangers, which is the live-action tabletop role-playing show. You can watch all the episodes online. Number 10, Lauren Shiba. Lauren is actually very unique. While technically not the first female Red Ranger, that honor goes to Charlie, who led the evil A-Squad team during Power Rangers SPD, but Lauren is the first good female Red Ranger. And it was a really big deal. Lauren takes over as the Red Samurai Ranger from her brother Jaden, and let's just say some of her fellow Rangers aren't too happy about it. But in the short time she's given, Lauren proves just how good of a leader she really is, even outdoing her own brother. She had to prove herself against all odds, and she succeeded, helping the Rangers win in the end. Now, like I mentioned, Lauren came in later and didn't have a lot of time, but proved herself a lot in the time she was given. The cool thing was that in the Boom comic series during Shattered Grid event, she was given a lot more to do, and was crucial in stopping Drakkon, and helped turn things back to normal in the end. She has also become so popular that she just got announced as a new DLC for the console game Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Number 9, Andros. I feel like a lot of people might be a little bit angry that Andros is a little higher on this list, but in the grand scheme of things, he was a really great Ranger, and had the added benefit of being in one of the best seasons, Power Rangers in Space. Andros was from a space colony, and while tracking down some leads, bumped into the Turbo Rangers. Some of them went on to join him as the Space Rangers, although not right away. He didn't really trust them all, and that is one of his biggest faults. His lack of trust in anyone. While he does end up overcoming it, it did hurt him a lot during the season, but he has a very compelling arc throughout the whole thing. To save his sister. This is his central conflict for the whole season and comes to a massive conclusion near the end, which wraps up a ton of stories that started all the way back in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The whole thing felt kind of like a series finale for the Power Rangers in general, but as we all know, it ended up continuing, and we got some great seasons after. But during the final moments of the season, Andros had to make the difficult choice to destroy Zordon, and by doing so, save his sister, but also turn a lot of other villains good, including Rita and Lord Zed. It was a big deal, and Andros made the difficult decision to do it, and in that moment proved how good of a ranger he was. The ability to make the hard choices. Number 8. Connor McKnight. Oh man, Connor is probably one of the most unlikable Red Rangers. At first. I mean, he was this rude jock who constantly disrespected other people. I mean, mainly women. He was also a massive bully towards fellow Ranger Ethan. And for the longest time, he wasn't even really leading his own team. Tommy was, as their mentor and later as the Black Dino Ranger. But as the season went on, Connor evolved and became a real leader, and learned to respect other people. I mean, near the beginning, he wanted to ditch being a Power Ranger and become a soccer star. He decided to stay with the Rangers and become a better person instead. And, in the end, he did end up getting the best of both worlds. Well, kind of. I mean, he didn't become the soccer player he always wanted to be, but he was a ranger and he ended up opening soccer camps for people all around the world, which was a nice touch and a good end to his arc. That kind of growth was nice to see, and making everyone hate him at the beginning was a very unique and interesting way to start off this Red Ranger's journey. But it worked, and people consider Dino Thunder to be one of the best seasons ever. Number 7. Wes Collins. Wes, the Red Time Force Ranger. The interesting thing is, even though Wes was the Red Ranger, he wasn't the leader of his team. It was actually Jen, the Pink Ranger, who led it. And it actually worked out. Wes was not ready to be a leader when he started. I mean, he was just kind of this spoiled rich kid who got money from his father. But after Jen's fiance, Alex, dies, also played by Jason Font, Wes becomes the new Time Force Red Ranger. Throughout the course of the season, Wes becomes a hero, and his team becomes his family. He was willing to sacrifice his own life for theirs, when he finds out that they would all perish if they stayed to fight with him in the past, so he sent them to the future. Of course, they all return, finding out that he would die if they didn't, and they kind of create a new destiny together. In the end, when he stays in the past, he becomes the leader of the Silver Guardians, a police organization created by his father, and gets Eric, aka the Quantum Ranger, to be his second in command. Wes also returned in the 25th anniversary of Power Rangers, titled Dimensions in Danger, where he was leading a group of other legendary Rangers. I mean, he has come a long way from just being some spoiled rich kid. Number 6. Shane Clark. Shane is the Red Wind Ranger from Power Rangers Ninja Storm. He was a member of the Wind Ninja Academy, but at the beginning, not one of its best students. Shane, Dustin, and Tori were all constantly late for class and lost in fights against fellow students. But after the Wind Ninja Academy and all of its other students were all taken away by the villain Lothor, Shane was one of the last 3 students and, at that moment, chosen to become the Red Wind Ranger. Even though he turned out to be one of the last choices for the role, he became a damn good one. Shane was a great leader. But I mean, he didn't start off that way. He was a bit of a slacker, and he just loved skateboarding. He grew a lot over the course of the season from a guy who, couldn't get to ninja class on time to the guy who ended up running it. Yes, he became an instructor in the end. Shane also is unique in the fact that he is one of the few Red Rangers to have powers outside of his costume. He has super speed, stealth, and can fly in a sense. Shane was a guy that wanted to prove that he could be more, not only to himself, but to his family, specifically his older brother, who thought Shane was just a screw-up and would never make anything of himself. Well, over the course of the season, he not only helped defeat Lothor, but also proved to himself, his team, and his family that he was a lot more capable than he thought. Number 5. Carter Grayson. Carter, the Red Lightspeed Ranger. Even before becoming a Power Ranger, Carter was saving people. As a firefighter. The reason he became one was because when he was a kid, he was saved by another firefighter, Captain Mitchell, who, he later ended up working for. He has always put his life on the line to save others. So it should come as no surprise that he was chosen to be one of the Power Rangers. He is a by-the-book kind of guy and doesn't really like to stray from that, which makes him stand out from other Red Rangers who usually will be a bit of, wild cards. Carter is also one that will never back down from a fight. He stopped Queen Ben-Shira by throwing her into the Shadow World and was one of the Rangers to return for not only the Forever Red special, but also the Legendary Battle. Carter may not be a Ranger who has changed that much over the years, but he is a dedicated leader and someone who will always be there for his team and the citizens of Mariner Bay whenever they need him. Number 4. TJ Johnson. TJ wasn't the first Red Turbo Ranger, but he's probably the most well-known Red Turbo Ranger. You see, Tommy was the first one to take on those powers, but he eventually passed the power on to TJ at one point during the season. A lot of people also know TJ as the Blue Space Ranger, which, he became right after. Honestly, in the short time he was given, TJ made a really big impression, and a lot of fans wish he could have been the Red Ranger longer. And imagine being the guy that had to succeed Tommy. That would have been nerve-wracking since Tommy was so popular, but TJ managed to do it, and still went on to be one of the more popular Rangers around. To start off, he saved Tommy before he even was a Ranger. He didn't hesitate to put his own life on the line to save someone he didn't even know, which is why Tommy ended up choosing him to take the power. When he became the Red Turbo Ranger, he constantly put his life on the line to protect his team. Near the end of the season, he sacrifices the Zords and almost his own life to stop Divatox. Even when the power chamber was being destroyed, TJ made sure that he wouldn't leave Alpha behind, even though he could have died trying to save him. Number 3, Tommy Oliver. Some fans might be angry that Tommy isn't number 1, and I get that. And while it might be up for debate on the greatest Rangers of all time list, he is more known for his other colors, but that doesn't take away from how good of a Red Ranger he was. Now, Tommy was 2 Red Rangers, the Red Zeo Ranger and the Red Turbo Ranger, but he wasn't a Turbo Ranger for very long, and he passes on to TJ, who we just talked about earlier. But even before becoming the Red Ranger Zeo, he was kind of leading the Mighty Morphin team as the White Ranger, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because he started out as this evil Ranger outcast and ended up working his way up and leading multiple Ranger teams. He even semi-led the Dino Rangers in Dino Thunder. He's courageous, selfless, and cares about his team. Heck, he was the one to bring all the Red Rangers together in the Forever Red team-up special in 2002. Tommy has also showed time and time again that he cared about everyone else more than himself. I mean, he even revealed himself as the Red Zeo Ranger to save his brother David, which put himself in grave danger, but he did it because he wanted to make sure he was safe no matter the cost to his own life. And that is a true leader. Number 2, Leo Corbin. Leo has one of the most interesting Red Ranger origins of all time. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to be one. His brother Mike was. You see, Mike was the one that pulled the red Quasar Saber from the stone, not Leo. But during the battle, when the whole world is turning into stone, Mike sacrifices his life and passes the sword on to his little brother, Leo. Everyone thought it was a mistake because Leo was seen kind of as like a screw-up, but Leo decides to take on the mantle and ends up proving them all wrong and becoming one of the best Red Rangers in the show's history. He started off as this impulsive, leap before looking kind of type and grew into a leader that the rest of the Rangers trusted. Whereas a lot of other Red Rangers start off as pretty good leaders, Leo grew into the role gradually as the season went on. And it was really cool to see. He was also the one to defeat Trakeena at the end of the season. Leo's story is one of the best, and even though he wasn't the Red Ranger the team wanted, he was the Red Ranger the team needed. Number 1, Jason Lee Scott, the original Red Ranger. Jason started it all, and to this day is still the best Red Ranger out there. He is this fearless leader and will never give up, no matter what. He led his team through many battles and was the one to take down one of their greatest foes, the Green Ranger. He always looked out for his team and was always putting them in front of himself. He even taught free karate classes at Ernie so that kids could learn self-defense. And fans were devastated when he left in season 2, but the new Boom comic series has added a lot of new stories for him as the Red Ranger. During the Shattered Grid event, he was the one that led every single Power Ranger in history in the fight against Lord Drakkon. No other Red Ranger could have done that. And now he's been a Red Ranger more than once, because in the comics he is now the Red Omega Ranger. Jason is the first and the greatest Red Ranger of them all, and that is something that will never change. Number 10, Orion. Power Rangers Megaforce and Power Rangers Super Megaforce aren't known to be the greatest seasons of Power Rangers. I mean, they have a lot of cool moments and introduced us to some cool Rangers, but overall there are a lot of things that could have been done a lot better. Orion is the Silver Megaforce Ranger, and the reason he's on here is because he can harness not only his own powers, but the powers of every 6th Ranger ever, and he can do it all at the same time. I mean, that automatically makes him one of the most powerful Rangers around. In most cases, not all, the 6th Ranger of any team is usually considered to be one of the most powerful. So, having that power is a really big advantage for him. Number 9, Adam Park. The Black Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Green Zeo Ranger, and the Green Turbo Ranger. I feel like some people might automatically overlook Adam, especially because he came in as a replacement during Mighty Morphin, but he has shown time and time again why he is not only one of the best Power Rangers, but also one of the strongest. Not only did he become 3 different Rangers, but he has also shown how fearless he is. I mean, during Power Rangers in Space, he came back and ended up using his damaged power coin and morphed into the original Black Ranger once again. It was dangerous and painful, but Adam did it to save Carlos, the Black Space Ranger, even though it could have killed him. It eventually got repaired, and Adam even returned during Operation Overdrive, leading a team of legendary Power Rangers. He had big shoes to fill, and when he came in, everyone wanted to hate all the replacements. But Adam proved everyone wrong and became one of the coolest and most powerful Rangers. Number 8. Jen Scotts. In every season of Power Rangers, the Red is always the leader. Well, in Time Force, it was actually a little bit different. Jen, the Pink Ranger, led the team, and honestly, it makes total sense. She has the most experience when it comes down to it, and she can make all the difficult choices. She not only protects the world of the future, but also the past. She leads her team all throughout time, and does that while also taking on a new member, Wes, who had really no idea what he was getting into when he joined. Even in the final battle against Ransik, all the other Rangers are on the ground injured, and Jen manages to muster enough energy to get back up and take on Ransik even without morphing. Like, come on, that is seriously impressive. Number 7, Leo Corbett. Leo is the Red Lost Galaxy Ranger, and the cool thing about him is that he wasn't even supposed to be the Red Ranger. His brother Mike was, but when his brother is about to die, he passes the power on to his little brother. And little did they know that Leo would not only go on to become one of the most powerful Rangers, but one of the greatest Red Rangers ever. A lot of people might have put Mike on this list instead of Leo because he went on to become the Magna Defender, but Leo has proven why he is more powerful time and time again. Not only did he overcome all the odds by becoming the Red Ranger, he overcame his impulsive nature to leap before looking and ended up defeating Trakina by himself at the end of the season. It was amazing and showed just how powerful Leo was. Number 6, Eric Myers. Eric the Quantum Ranger. During Power Rangers Time Force, the Rangers were all looking for the quantum power because of how powerful it was. Eric ended up finding it, and he took it for himself. And of course, that didn't sit well with all the other Rangers. He may have butted heads with them on multiple occasions, but he also fought against Ransik. As the Quantum Ranger, he also commanded one of the most powerful Zords around. Well, I guess some have even called it the most powerful, and that's the Q-Rex. He may not have been the one the Rangers wanted, but Eric has proved himself multiple times, and even returned to help all the other Red Rangers during the Forever Red crossover special. Number 5, the Ranger Slayer. The Ranger Slayer comes from the Boom comic series and introduced us to Kimberly Hart, the original Pink Ranger, but from an alternate reality. And oh man, she was awesome. She has an altered suit, and she was brainwashed into working for Draken and killing other Rangers. Her story starts out the same way as the original Kimberly, but starts to change once Draken kills the Jason and Billy of her world. Add to the fact that the love of her life, Matthew Cook, ended up getting killed. She kind of snapped and ended up taking Draken on herself. She destroyed so many of his sentries, but eventually was taken down and mind controlled to work for him. She now possesses the Bow of Darkness and became known as the Ranger Slayer. She's killed multiple Rangers since then, and ultimately she did come back to the side of good and help them defeat him. This version of Kimberly is slightly older and has a lot more experience. I mean, she is just one of the coolest new additions to the Power Rangers canon. Number 4, Kruger. Kruger is part of the Power Rangers SPD team, and also known as the SPD Shadow Ranger. He ran the whole SPD, Space Patrol Delta, unit on Earth before actually joining the team later on. He was technically already powerful without his suit, but when he became the Shadow Ranger, it took his powers to a whole new level. I mean, he took on what was basically an army of Crybots by himself, and he didn't even get hit. Like, come on, that's pretty crazy. I mean, he didn't even have help while he was doing it. He did it all on his own. Add to the fact that he has a really cool costume, and you have not only the strongest SPD Ranger, but just one of the strongest Rangers in general. He has also become super popular. As of the writing of this list, he's the only SPD Ranger to appear in the video game Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Number 3, Lord Draken. Lord Draken has seriously become one of the coolest and most popular additions to the Power Rangers mythology. What Boom Studios and Kyle Higgins did with him was amazing. And while yes, he technically possessed so many Ranger powers, and would be considered to be the most powerful in a sense, he was defeated. But that doesn't take away from how amazing he is. So if you don't know, Lord Draken is Tommy Oliver from an alternate reality. Basically, his story was the same up until he was defeated by Jason. In this reality, instead of joining the Rangers, he left. Rita found him again, and the two went on to take over the world. He got even more powerful when he attacked the command center when Zordon was giving Jason the White Ranger power. But Draken intervened and took that power for himself, merging along with the one he already had. And because of that gave him a seriously badass costume. His mission from then on was to destroy all the Rangers from every dimension and stealing powers along the way. I won't give too much away, but in his quest to defeat the Rangers, he started the event known as Shattered Grid, which brought together every Ranger team ever to stop him. Number 2. Tommy Oliver. Tommy. Oh man. One of the cool things about Tommy is that he has been so many different Rangers that it gave a chance for fans to be introduced to him at different times. Like different generations of fans. He was the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Mighty Morphin White Ranger. He was the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger, the White Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Red Zeo Ranger, the Red Turbo Ranger, and the Black Dino Ranger. His most famous and most powerful form is definitely the Green Ranger. He was the very first evil 6th Ranger to be introduced, and he made a very strong impression. As the Green Ranger, he constantly fought the original 5 and usually always won. I mean, Rita made him for the sole purpose of destroying them, but he did get defeated and eventually join their side. He then continued to move up and lead multiple Ranger teams. I mean, he even helped create the Dino Rangers in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. He helped defeat Draken in Shattered Grid, and it was revealed in both the comics and TV show that he now possesses a Master Morpher, which is the first of his kind, which allows him to transform into any of his Ranger forms. Usually when a Ranger becomes a new Ranger, they lose access to their old Morpher. I mean, sometimes. The odd times they'll always get it back, but this way he can morph into any form at any given time, and that right there makes him insanely powerful. And number 1, Jason Lee Scott, the original Red Ranger. The original Red Ranger. Jason has shown time and time again why he is the most powerful Ranger. In the show, he was always the one going up against the biggest villains, including Tommy, who he ended up defeating by himself. I mean, he took on Goldar without powers in season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He then went on to become the Gold Ranger during Power Rangers Zeo. He got those powers temporarily from Trey of Triforia, who was injured and split himself into 3 forms, and he was too weak to use the Gold Ranger power, so he passed them on to Jason. But most recently, he was the Red Omega Ranger, which was introduced in the comics. In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers season 2, Jason, Trini, and Zach left for a peace conference and were replaced. But in the comic, it reveals that they actually went off to become the Omega Rangers and fight greater threats, even in space. He has proven himself not only to be the strongest Ranger, but also the strongest leader. No one leads a team like him, and no matter how bad things get, he never gave up. And if you need any more proof, he was the Ranger that led the charge against Draken during Shattered Grid, leading hundreds and hundreds of Rangers. And he also gave the most epic speech during that time. He was also one of the main ones to lead the Red Rangers in Forever Red. Jason is the ultimate Ranger. Number 10, Ryan Mitchell. Ryan is the Titanium Ranger from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Now, there was a lot of build-up about the Titanium Ranger because of how powerful those powers are. I mean, even Carter tried to wield it and couldn't. Ryan is the son of Captain Mitchell, and as I mentioned in another video, his father and sister were all involved in a car accident. They were hanging off a cliff, and Captain Mitchell only had a secure grasp on his daughter. And just as Ryan was about to fall, Diabolico appeared and offered to save Ryan, but he would raise Ryan himself, and Captain Mitchell wouldn't see him again until he was about 20 years old. Of course, the captain agreed, and then Ryan grew up with Diabolico and was fed all of these lies about his father and how he abandoned him. And then he eventually broke into the Aqua Base and stole the Titanium Morpher, and his mission was to destroy the Power Rangers. And as is the case with a lot of evil Rangers, he became good in the end and joined the team. Ryan is also very unique because he has no Super Sentai counterpart. The suit was an American creation, which is cool because the suit itself is pretty awesome and showed how far Power Rangers has come because every season started filming more and more of their own footage. Of course, they still use Sentai footage, but they do a lot more of their own now. Number 9, Katie Walker. Let me start off by saying, I love Time Force. The whole season was just so good and gave us so many memorable moments, but also just memorable Rangers. I already mentioned 2 of them on part 1 of the list. Now I get to talk about Katie, and don't be surprised if there's another Time Force character somewhere on this list as well. Okay, but back to my main point. Katie is very unique because not only is she powerful when she's morphed as the Yellow Time Force Ranger, but she also has enhanced strength as well. without it. The reason she has these powers is because of genetic engineering. She is able to lift concrete debris with ease, and when they teamed up with the Wild Force Rangers, she beat Danny, who of course is the Black Wild Force Ranger, in an arm wrestle easily, which fans thought was a really cool and funny moment. Katie never backed down from a fight and was crucial in taking down the season's big bad, Ransik. Number 8, RJ. Robert James, but better known as RJ, is the Wolf Ranger or Purple Ranger from Power Rangers Jungle Fury. He is probably one of the craziest and coolest Rangers around. I mean, for one, his fighting style is unlike anything Power Rangers has done before, and that's also probably why he was the first main Jungle Fury Ranger to be playable in the new fighting game Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. He's actually one of the best characters in that game, and hopefully they start adding more Jungle Fury Rangers soon. I mean, they added Daishi, who was the, villain of the season as well. But RJ, as a whole, is just one of the most unique. He was the mentor to the main 3 Rangers of the season, Casey, Lily, and Theo, and he also owned Jungle Karma Pizza, where the main 3 worked, but also used as their main command center. RJ had a really big job when he was chosen to help stop Daishi, and was crucial in preparing the Rangers for that incoming threat. Number 7, Wes Collins. Wes, the Red Time Force Ranger. Like I mentioned earlier, another member of the Time Force team made their way onto this list, further cementing them as one of the best. But back to Wes, he's just all around a very strong Ranger. The crazy thing is that he just started off as, some rich kid's son who ended up becoming the Red Power Ranger. Now, he wasn't technically the leader of the team, as most Red Rangers are, that was Jen. But Wes probably wouldn't have been ready right away anyway. He grew as the season went on and went on multiple time-traveling missions, and would go on to be one of the leaders of the Silver Guardians. Even during the battle with Ransik, Wes was one of the only ones to cause major damage to him with his battleizer, which also looked just so cool. Wes showed how he was not only strong physically, but mentally, because getting thrown into a time-traveling superhero team without any real experience would have been hard on anyone. But he pulled it off, and he became a fan favorite Ranger. I mean, he has returned multiple times for multiple anniversary events. Number 6, Tori Hansen. Tori comes from, in my opinion, one of the greatest seasons of Power Rangers ever, Ninja Storm. Now, all of the Ninja Storm Rangers are powerful, but there are a few reasons why Tori might be considered to be slightly stronger. Firstly, her water abilities are incredibly powerful. As we all know, water can be such a powerful weapon in a lot of different situations. I mean, not only can she make tidal waves or just manipulate it to her will, she can also use it to track things, as she did when she was sent to locate the Turtle Mace Power Sphere. She is also a great fighter and was able to hold her own against multiple villains by herself. On top of all that, she was one of the Rangers that was brought back by the Centennial Knight to protect the world when the Overdrive Rangers lost their powers. They have been called the Retro Rangers and were made up of Rangers from multiple seasons. And it was a big deal that she was chosen to be one of those Rangers to come back and protect the world. Number 5, Carter Grayson. Oh, good old Carter. I mean, he's just a cool Ranger. Not only is he a great guy, I mean, he was a firefighter before he became a Ranger, so he was already saving lives for a very long time. And then the man he idolized, Captain Mitchell, who was the reason he became a firefighter, since he saved Carter when he was a kid, asks him to lead the Power Rangers as the Red Lightspeed Ranger. He is a great leader, but he can also handle a lot of situations on his own. I mean, he fought Vipra all on his own and basically won, and he helped defeat Queen Benchira by throwing her into the Shadow World. He even took on the Titanium Ranger, who was also, as we know, very, very powerful. As I mentioned in my Red Ranger video, Carter is a very by-the-books kind of guy, and while that sometimes hurts him, it has really turned him into one of the most powerful Rangers of all time. Number 4, TJ Johnson. TJ had such a difficult task when he joined the Power Rangers. I mean, he was the guy that had to replace Tommy Oliver, and that would have been hard for anyone to do. Luckily, TJ pulled it off and became not one, but 2 different Power Rangers, the Red Turbo Ranger and the Blue Space Ranger. TJ has shown time and time again why he is one of the strongest, not only in strength, but by his sheer force of will, and his never give up mentality. I mean, when the power chamber was being destroyed, TJ made sure that he wouldn't leave Alpha behind, even though it was dangerous. Plus, going from Earth missions to missions across the galaxy was a massive leap that not everyone would have been able to take, but he did it. He was also a crucial part of 2 Ranger teams. TJ has also returned numerous times during Forever Red and the Legendary Battle and Dimensions in Danger. Number 3, Andros. Let me start off by saying, I think Andros has one of, if not the coolest intro for a Red Ranger ever. I mean, he goes undercover during this massive villain party that featured numerous villains from various seasons of Power Rangers. I mean, it had Lord Zed, Rita, Divatox, Goldar, Astronema, and many more. Dark Spectre was also around, who mysteriously looks a lot like Malagor from Turbo. I always wondered about that. I think they just used the same costume and just kind of slightly altered it, but I like to think that they were just brothers or something, not that they just reused the same costume. But back to my main point. Andros is there undercover, and although he is caught, he doesn't give up, and he fights. That would take a lot of courage to do that. I mean, going into a room full of the galaxy's greatest villains, he does it and he survives. Plus, he took on the Psycho Rangers, and he was the guy that destroyed Zordon, which was a massive deal and basically ended the 6-season-long arc of Power Rangers. Andros had a ton of memorable moments and even ended up coming back for Forever Red. Hopefully, since he's still technically an active Ranger, he will return one day again. Number 2. Trent Fernandez Mercer. Trent is the White Dino Ranger, and aside from just being powerful, if there was a top 10 Ranger suit list, Trent's would most definitely be on there. I mean, it's just so freaking cool. All of Dino Thunder's suits were, for that matter. But okay, back to the main point. Trent is the adopted son of the season's big bad, Mesogog. He found the White Dino Gem, which was corrupted, and because of that, he became evil. Although the cool thing about him is that he wasn't just taking orders from Mesogog like a lot of other evil Rangers would have. He was just doing his own thing and would team up with the villains if it suited him. Trent eventually became good and joined the Dino Rangers. He is one of their most valuable assets. I mean, he beat Tommy in a fight, and Tommy is one of the greatest Rangers around. He also has super speed and can camouflage himself. Trent also returned to the show recently during the show's 25th anniversary episode, Dimensions in Danger. Unfortunately, he didn't have a lot to do in it, but it was just still cool to see him return. Number 1, the Psycho Rangers. I probably should have included them on the first list. That was my bad. I was trying to focus more on non-evil Rangers, but I did include Draken. So I mean, I kind of messed up there because Draken and Psycho Rangers both would have been on the first list. So that was my fault. The Psycho Rangers definitely deserved this spot and would have been near the top on the first list. I mean, they were my pick for the best evil Rangers ever on my other list. But okay, let's talk about them because they're just amazing. The Psycho Rangers made their first appearance during Power Rangers in Space and made a brief but very memorable return during Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. There are 6 of them overall: the red, pink, blue, black, yellow, and green, who was recently introduced in the comics and killed a lot of Rangers. They have amazing suits, and they were created by Astronema as the evil counterpart to the Space Rangers. Now, the Space Rangers did defeat them, but not easily, and to this day, they remain one of the scariest villains in Power Rangers history. I mean, the Pink Psycho Ranger was responsible for the death of the Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger Kendrix.